Okay, let's do that intro again. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat on the way in. My bad, y'all. There's a reason why it's called Reckless Streams. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Let me get a one in the chat if you guys can hear me. A one in the chat. Yeah, so the reason why it's called Reckless Stream happened. Give me a second actually. All right, there we go. So y'all will be hearing a bit of echo, some background noise, but as long as the message is getting through and the background noise isn't too bad, then yeah. So Mr. Z, are you working right now? Absolutely. Um, and we're gonna be making some noise, and yeah, you already know. Um, okay, so um, shout out to Diallo Kenyatta. Mr. Z wants to be Diallo Kenyatta when he grows up. Like, you know, the brother is funny. He called himself the number one hater, right? I think it's funny. I think especially when you are a critiquer of society, black people, you have a way of viewing things that might be different from the norm, sometimes the same, but most of the times different. I think Diallo description of himself, right? He called himself the hater innovator, right? I think it's hysterical. I think it's pretty accurate, but in a good way. And I appreciate listening to the brother the most of the time, right? And as a fellow leftist, of course, right? Our politics align pretty well for the most part. Y'all are gonna hear the disagreement in a minute, but hopefully y'all got to hear or watch as much of Diallo's stream as possible. Y'all know the disagreements are coming. It's on its way. It's on its way. But I definitely wanted to say that first. Okay, alrighty then. The left, black men on the left aren't dumb. They see the way the women speak. They see, and we're talking about black women, of course, and we're talking about black people, right? So, and this is why I really had an issue with waving the red flag and how they were using black men and men interchangeably, because it's not the same. The power dynamic is not the same. No FD, it's not hiding the power level. That's cute, funny, but not accurate, particularly in the black community, which was never a patriarchy. Repeat that one more time, Z, which was never a patriarchy, right? So there's that. And thank y'all for listening in and fix it, the suspense. Hysterical. That wasn't on purpose. I was definitely planning on starting this on time, and life happened, and so obviously. So yeah, so the left really has a difficult time admitting that the black community, the black left, mind you, has a difficult time admitting that the black community was never a patriarchy. The black community is a matriarchy, and black women wield power in the black community, unlike other communities in America, right? So if you're going to admit and say that black women aren't white women, then you gotta say that black men aren't white men, right? If there's data and research and studies, and even FD Signifier has cited these things that show that black men are egalitarian as hell, black men vote to the left second highest after black women, you cannot then turn around and then every time we talk and we hear black people calling black men patriarchal, and particularly the black left I'm speaking about, right? Patriarchal, well, not even failed patriarchs. That's where more conservatives come in often. Patriarchal and all type of toxic and all of that. That is not where the black community is. That is not where black men are. Could you just be honest and admit that you really don't have a real grounded critique of black men? You just got your feelings hurt. I'm directed that primarily to black LGBTQ and black women, right? Black LGBTQ men in particular and black women. We can acknowledge and admit the hypocrisy of black men, of men in general in this society, but when it comes down time to critique and speak of the hypocrisy of black women, all of a sudden, it's time to contextualize, right? It's time to view this from a nuanced lens, right? It's time to frame this correctly, right? It's time to not be as harsh, not be as crass, not, to be a bit more understanding, right? To be emotionally intelligent. When it's time to talk about the hypocrisy of heterosexual black women, that's when we gotta soft hand, right? Soft hand in a soft glove, right? That's when it's time to, be a bit more understand. You have to understand, right? This is when intersectionality starts rearing its ugly head, right? This is when we start speaking intersectional, right? To explain away black women's behavior directed towards black men. We're not talking about black women deservingly maybe being rude and crass and mean to white men or white women. Oh, absolutely not. Why would they? They envy the white woman and they wish they were with the white man, right? But why would they? Right? We're talking about black women and the way they respond and react to black men, right? So, Diallo had some points here. I wanted to go over certain things that I disagree about, certain things talking about contextualizing that I think needs a bit of context. Um, and actually, let's look at those notes. Yeah, give me 1 second, and hopefully you guys can still hear me. I'm hoping. Okay, let's look at that. Okay, all right. Okay, yeah. So Diallo mentions black women being homeowners, right? And how they were throwing that in black men's faces and speaking about black men being, basement dwellers and, being in their mama's basement and whatnot. And you know, he mentions black women being homeowners and throwing that in black men's faces. And I say, Diallo and others have a really difficult time grappling with black women's hypergamy and the hypocrisy that comes from them trying to have power while also obfuscating, right, or the obfuscation of responsibility and accountability. It's the hypocrisy of heterosexual women. That's what you're witnessing, Diallo. What y'all are witnessing is that black women, like other women in the society, y'all think hypergamy is just a thing that black men made up or men in this country made up. That women aren't trying to date and marry across and up, and they actually don't want see they don't actually want egalitarianism at home. It sounds nice, but when you actually show them what it looked like, they don't appreciate it, right? Diallo said something like, these women want a capitalist in the streets and a revolutionary in the sheets, and I think that's pretty damn accurate. Um, and he was honest about, that's not how the world works, and you don't turn that shit off when you walk in the door, right? That's not something you turn off when you walk in your door, and I appreciate him being honest about that. But I think that needs to be emphasized more in the black community because it speaks to a very big disconnect. And as we've often said in the black manosphere, black women not doing the math, right? The math ain't mathing. The math ain't mathing because what you're expecting for men to be, for black men to be, what you're desiring for black men to be, right? That's for the ones of you that are actually not into white men. You're not pretending not to be into white men. You're actually not into white men. The things that you want black men to be, the personality archetype often, right? We're not talking about the one-off Tupacs that are artisans and then they're also hood dudes and then they're also attractive and then they're also charismatic and they're also like kind and they're also like sympathetic. But then no. That's like 1% of the population. Stop it, right? So, right, and rest in peace, Tupac. But you know, the archetype oftentimes that it takes to be that person doesn't turn off when you get into the house. The archetype that it takes to be that person doesn't turn on when you walk out the house and then turn off when you walk in the house. And we see that with women. I actually think that Diallo did a good job mentioning later on in that in his stream, the And when you look at that, I have no idea when I went out. I have no idea. Wow. Okay. Well, so I guess I gotta hold this with one hand then and make sure I'm looking at the screen. Okay, that just happened. Um, I don't know how long I went. I don't know what I missed or what you guys missed. Better yet. Alrighty. So that just happened. Wow. And today on Reckless Streams, wow. Okay. All right. And I was getting to a good part, and I was rolling and flowing. Okay. Flowing and rolling. Okay. Back to what we're saying. I think brothers on the left have a difficult time grappling with this. Um, as I was saying before, I don't know if you guys caught when I was going through the name. Oh, wow. Dre said you went out like 5 minutes ago. Jeez. Okay. And Excalibur said, Diallo mentioned in that stream that oh, I don't even. Oh, that's horrible. Oh, okay. That just happened 5 minutes ago. Okay. So Diallo mentions in that stream. Oh, yeah. That's where we're going. Haha. Okay. Diallo mentions in that stream the women who were throwing in black men's faces their home ownership rate, right? Black women's home ownership rate, and essentially calling black men basement dwellers and living in a mama basement, et cetera, et cetera. And as y'all recall, I've mentioned multiple times, you can tell Diallo was a bit annoyed when black women were throwing in black men's faces about the Keke Palmer, Darius Jackson situation. Black women throwing in black men's faces that Keke Palmer is the famous one, she's the rich one. So essentially, Darius Jackson need to play his role, shut up, be the pretty boy, and play his role, And Diallo, you could tell, had an issue with that. But Diallo, what did you expect? What did you expect? Y'all have allowed, even in the pro-black spaces, y'all have allowed black women to talk like this for decades. It's only gotten worse, right? It's only gotten worse. The reason why it's so egregious now is because so many of you brothers just kept on copping pleas for women like this. And so now these are your daughters, and they're talking this reckless because y'all helped to create this space, right? In respect to Diallo for mentioning how if there's a preponderance of toxic masculinity in a society, and it's not just a one-off, right? It's not just a one-off, then that speaks to where the society is, and the society possibly being toxic, right? The society possibly being toxic, and he says, if instead of being, and some of this is paraphrased, but if instead of being a aberration that a man is toxic, but instead the men of a society are toxic, then the institutions are toxic, the values are toxic, the economy is toxic, and the women are toxic. But we don't speak about toxic femininity much in this society now, do we? Right? We don't speak about that, and how women hide behind toxic men. The women don't want to own the hypocrisy that are their expectations and their standards. In other words, women don't want to admit that they send men out there to kill and steal. Women don't want to admit that they send men out there to pillage for the lifestyle. In other words, if you want to do street things, women don't want to admit that they like the D-boy because the D-boy can provide them with a lifestyle, and the D-boy is the famous around the way hood dude, and they actually appreciate that. They want to be different. They want to be special. They want to be on the passenger seat of that Benz. If you want to take it to a corporate level, women don't want to admit they're perfectly okay with being Bernie Madoff's wife, Bill Gates' wife, Jeff Bezos' wife, Mark Zuckerberg's wife, Jay-Z's wife. Ooh, goddamn Z. Right? They don't want to admit that they will know and not care about what their boyfriend, husband, baby daddy had to do to provide them with that. Shout out to Black Uru with that Birkin bag, right? And y'all excuse my background. Y'all know Mr. Z is. It's not even fully reckless streams today. I guess it's partial reckless streams. It's not full on reckless streams, right? But yeah, so yeah, and I think that's where Diallo and much of the left kind of struggle to admit that this is a thing, right? And then what does that mean for black men, right? What does that mean for black men, right? And it really is. Women don't want to earn, excuse me, women don't want to own that they're okay with the sharks. They actually appreciate the sharks. They would actually rather be with the sharks, especially if the sharks are providing a lifestyle, obviously, right? If the sharks are providing a lifestyle, the women will be there, right? And it goes beyond survival. I want to be very clear what Mr. Z is saying. And you see this, and this is where heterosexual feminists are actually being like, okay, it's not about starvation, right? I want to be very clear. I am not saying that it's simply women in general, black women specifically in this conversation, that are struggling, that don't have, that are in need, that, you know, they're short on resources. And so, yes, they will overlook the misbehavior and the bad deeds of men so that they can eat. No, we're saying women that can afford everything on their own. We are speaking about women that are doing well financially, who are high ranking in whatever position they occupy, whatever career they occupy, and they still want the lifestyle provided by a man. They still want their life subsidized by a man. And our society just refuses to admit that women like that are okay with toxic men. They'll overlook it, they'll ignore it, they'll pretend like they don't know about it, right? But they are perfectly okay with toxic men, right? That's what this is about. That's what this is about. You have correction officers, you have correction officers fighting over prison mates because that prison mate is the dude in the streets. And they're getting pregnant from a prison mate, right? These are black women, correctional officers, having sex with and being impregnated by a dude that's in prison. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was in prison for life. I think he was in prison for life, right? So the left has some real work to do, especially if they're afraid of and they're apprehensive of black men voting more and more to the right, possibly, or just staying home and not participating in the electoral process at all, which will hurt the left anyway, because the right would appreciate that also. So if that's the fear, then once again, what's the incentive, right? What's the incentive? So earlier, right before I realized that you guys couldn't hear me, I was mentioning Kevin Samuels, and I was mentioning, and I wanted to say this to Diallo and to all the brothers on the left. Um, what you saw every night were black women's neoliberal assessment and commoditization of black men and masculinity, right? Putting being a husband, giving that a price tag, right? That's what you saw. That's what you saw from old to young. That's what you saw. That's what you saw from women that don't earn a lot to women that are doing well in life. What you saw them do was put a price tag on companionship with them. What you saw them say is, who wants to be with average anyway? That's what you saw. That's what you saw every night. And it's disheartening that it's at this late date that we're finally addressing black women's toxicity. It's saddening that at this late date, and it's only really because black men, much like other men in this society, are dropping out, right? Or are threatening to vote to the right, right? Or once again, threatening to not participate in the electoral process at all, which helps the right, which helps the political right, right? That is what we're dealing with right now. And so, as I was saying before, I don't know if y'all didn't hear this part when I was like, um, when Diallo said women want a capitalist in the streets and a revolutionary in the sheets, the same women that say toxic masculinity say you're broke and busted and you live in your mama's basement. Yes, Diallo, absolutely. And that's the hypocrisy that I was attempting to speak to FD Signifier about. That he assured me was just a it's just boss girl feminism, and it's just just a small amount of infinitesimal. And he wasn't saying these words, but essentially that was the message. It's an infinitesimal amount of black women that think and move like that. Me and you both know better, Diallo. By the way, FD knows better too, right? The hypocrisy, see, and then we can't speak about the hypocrisy of women in a vacuum. We could speak about the hypocrisy of men in a vacuum. We could speak about toxic, quote unquote, toxic masculinity concerning black men in a vacuum. But somehow, some way, once we start speaking about black women and their toxicity and their hypocrisy, and the fact that we know, like you said, Diallo, and you're correct, that they want a capitalist in the streets and a revolutionary in the sheets. We can't speak about that in a vacuum. Somehow we got to mention black men because we have to speak about it like the reason why these black women are the way they are is because black men are the way they are. Right? Right? Diallo also says, and he said, there's some research on this. The number one predictor, and I recall reading something about this also. The number one predictor and preventer of crime is the level of connection people in a population feel towards one another, right? Towards each other, right? And the question then becomes: are black men connected to the black community truly, or have black women treated black men like second-class citizens in their own community? If we're going to speak about black men's criminality, are black men connected to the black community, or are black men treated like children and like second-class citizens in their own community? Something to think about, right? Something to think about. And if, which I posit, black men are treated like children, like inept children, right? Like a nuisance in the black community, and they're treated like second-class citizens, like they're on the short bus, like they're a special needs child within the black community, then do you not understand the indifference, the growing indifference of black men? Right? Do we not understand that? Of course we do. Of course we do. Now, are we going to pretend like we don't understand it? Oh, yep, you better believe it. Right? The question, once again, and I want this question to be flowing in the back of all the black leftist mind. What is the incentive for black men? Right? Because if the Democratic Party is going to assist black women and benign neglecting black boys and black men's concerns, particularly straight black men and black boys' concerns, and then the political right is going to ignore black men unless they drop that whole black thing, hey, that racism, yeah, it's not real. That anti-blackness is not real. It's a figment of your imagination, right? Hustle your way out of that, right? Alpha your way out of that. First of all, it's not real. I'm not even acknowledging that, but I'm saying if it was real, which I'm not saying it's real, then you can just offer your way out of that, right? So once again, what is the incentive for black men to participate in the electoral process? And Ishmael says, and he's correct here, we are treated as if we are a burden, a scourge on black women if we're trying to exert some sense of agency. Nope. Zero sum game, sir. Your agency comes at a detriment to her, so we can't allow you to have that. Oh no, only one of us, right? Only one of us can truly have agency in the black community. And somebody got to pay for the other one's agency. Right? Now, Diallo goes on to say society gets the men it deserves. Now, if y'all recall, somebody in the black community said this before. It's not actually Mr. Z. Someone said something like this before. Society gets the men it deserves. That it deserves, right? Shout out to BGS. It was BGS. Ding 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 ding. Right? Society gets the men it deserves. Diallo goes on to say, men don't make themselves. Men are a product of the myths, the outlooks, the standards, the demands of his society. Ooh, black women. Black women. Let's say that again. Men don't make themselves. Men are a product of the myths, the outlooks, the standards, the demands of his society. Uh-oh. Black women. What are your myths about black men? What's your outlook about black men? What are your standards of black men? What are your demands of black men? Whoops. Ooh, that ain't looking good. That's not looking good. This is why you like to speak about you in a vacuum. Because black women like to pretend like they have not contributed at all to black men's incarceration rate. As I said to the women on the breakdown once, yeah, who is oftentimes this money when these guys get caught, the dudes in the streets, who is the money oftentimes under? Whose house is the money being hidden in? Right? Who's driving a nice new Lexus, a nice new Benz? Right? Who? Who gets to enjoy the money when he gets incarcerated for the money that the government couldn't catch? Right? Who? Ismail, like, thank you, mama, baby mama, aunties, daughters. Huh? Wife, baby mama, aunties, ex-girlfriends. Because Mr. Z, why you call ex-girlfriend? Because she got to cheat on you with your op, or she got to cheat on you with one of the dudes in your circle, right? Huh? Men don't make themselves. Men are a product of the myths, of the outlooks, of the standards, of the demands of his society. Black women, what do you demand of black men? What are your standards of black men? Black women like to speak about this like it exists in a vacuum, right? Black men are wayward, and black men are wayward in a vacuum because they're aspiring to be white men and they're failing at it. And so black women got to deal with all of the fallout of incapable, inept, wannabe white patriarchs, right? You let black feminists speak about black men, particularly in academia. You let black feminists portray straight black men on television, in movies, and you get the bigger long character. And when I say black feminists, I'm talking about the male feminists and the female feminists. When you let black women portray black men, when you let black feminists portray black men, you get the bigger long character. You get Mr. right, from The Color Purple. You get the bigger long character from the Harriet movie, right? That's who you get. Because in their mind, that is who black men are, right? You get black women trying to play damsel in distress with black men's lives, right? Huh. Let me read this one more again, this part right here. If instead of being a aberration that a man is toxic, but instead the men of a society are toxic, then the institutions are toxic, the values are toxic, the economy is toxic, the women are toxic. A. Ebony K. Williams, oops. A. Chrissy, yikes. A. Yanni, oh, right? Hey, Paris Milan. Ooh. Hey, Cynthia G. Ooh. Hey, Crystalline Kerosene. Ah, Mahogany Pink. Ugh. Lexus Exodus. Ah, Shira 7. Oops. All these women want these men. And now, if you let Shira 7 say it, now she's okay with if black men became white men and just went around slaughtering indigenous people, East Indians, right? Or Southeast Asians, East Asians, Aboriginals in Australia, the Inuits, right? Indigenous folks in South America, indigenous folks in the Caribbean, Polynesians, right? They would be perfectly okay with black men doing that if black men can put them at worst where your standard upper middle class white woman is, and at best where Bernie Madoff wife was, right? When I said to FD Signifier that many of these women, and it's way more than he would like to think, it's way more than, excuse me, than just the boss girl feminist. If you let women talk long enough, because when you first let them talk, then they're gonna do the woe is me and I'm a victim of this and that. But if you let them speak, and BGS said Bowser, Bowser's one of them too, right? Bowser's one of them too, right? But if you let black women talk long enough, you'll see the inner white capitalist come out of them. You'll see the inner Frederick Hayek come out of them. You'll see the inner Milton Friedman come out of them. Even for some of them Hotep sisters, oops, and them pro-blacks, yikes. Let them talk long enough, right? Even some of them black lefties, them so-called Marxists, shout out to BLM. Let them talk long enough, right? And Buckeye fan says, and thank you for the super chat, see No Scrubs by TLC, Bills by Destiny's Child, and that's what I'm saying, right? And once again, thank you for the super chat, Buckeye fan. That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm saying. We let them talk long enough, and it's going to look real ugly. It's going to look real ugly. The idea that black women are more moral than black men is going to go out the window. We let them talk long enough. And that was the beauty. Once again, rest in peace. Kevin, I'm probably going to be referring to Kevin Samuels many times tonight. Today, that's it tonight. Today, right? And the daily wrap-up crew, right? Because what did we see? What do we see on Daily Wrap-Up Crew? What did we see on Kevin Samuels' show? What do we see sometimes on Lapeef? What do we see on what's the other one? Crew Season. What do we see on these type of shows all the time? Black women sounding a whole lot like Milton Friedman and Frederick Hayek with a sprinkle of black revolutionary language, with a sprinkle of do for self and black uplift language, right? So the framing is about black uplift, but really it's about being a consumerist, a consumerist and materialist with a sprinkle of black ingenuity and black uplift and black community uplift and black family and black love. Right? When you have fully black women saying provide, protect, and shut up. When you have fully black women saying, if I earn more than you, I will, what did she say? She didn't say mistreat you. I will not demean you. I will belittle you. I will belittle you. If I make more than you, I will belittle you. She said, I will. She didn't say I might. She didn't say it could happen. She didn't say, because of the system, the way we're raised, the way the society socializes us. No. She said, I will belittle you. Huh? We have women having the temerity and the gumption to type on Twitter, I miss the days when men would work, die, and leave their life insurance money to you. Black women saying that. Black women saying that. We have black women celebrating the death of one of the most famous, talented basketball players in basketball history, Kobe Bryant, because he wasn't married to a black woman and because his money is now going to a Latina and his, mixed children. Huh. right? That is what we're saying here. And so when black women throw in black men's faces their home ownership rate, that's black women's home ownership rate. Understand what you're seeing. You're seeing black people, black women, who have had the thumbs put on the scales for them and their upliftment at the detriment of black men, throwing that in black men's faces. Right? Throwing that in black men's faces. And black men are supposed to do what with that? When you have a general Western, really global push to educate women, to bring women into society, to have women be tax-paying citizens and contributors to this economy and this society outside of being stay-at-home mothers, right? Or stay-at-home wives. And then women turn around and throw that the fact that, and they don't frame it like this, Mr. Z is framing it like this, that the institutions in this society has decided to put its chips on them, women then turning around and throwing that in working class men's faces. That includes black women throwing that in working class black men's faces, that the institutions in the system have backed them. How's this supposed to work? Right? How's this supposed to work? Well, it's not, and that's why it's not working. It's not gonna work, right? It's not gonna work. That's why it's not working. And y'all like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Right? So watching Diallo speak about this, you know, it seems that we're actually having an effect for real, because, you know, and it's election season, so let's call a thing a thing. And it's election season, so some of these people are afraid because black men are actually bucking. Black men are actually talking back, and it looks like black men actually mean it this time, right? Huh. So if this is where we are, and I'm by the way, I am perfectly okay with black men holding the black community hostage. I said it. I'm okay, and I don't care who hear it. I'm okay with black men holding the black community hostage with our indifference. And I'll say it to anyone's face. I'll say it to Steve Harvey to his face. I will say it to Diallo to his face. I will say it to Dr. Jared Ball to his face. I'll say it to Dr. Boyce Watkins to his face. I'll say it to Dr. Umar Johnson to his face. I am perfectly okay with black men holding the black women in the black community hostage with our indifference. Notice what I didn't say. I didn't say harming black women. I didn't even say insulting black women. I didn't say hurting their little feelings. I said just being like, meh. What happened? Meh. Just a general nonchalant attitude, just meh. Oh God, Trump's gonna get into office, meh. He's gonna elect a bunch of judges that's gonna repeal stuff that hurts the black community, meh. Black men, that's gonna mean something for your lives, meh. He's gonna put a bunch of federal judges in that's gonna hurt black people, meh. Because do black women really care? Or do they only care when they're going to sleep at night with an empty bed? Do they only care because they're going to sleep at night in an empty bed? Right? Do they truly care about black men and boys and the outcome of black boys? Do they truly care about black boys not reading on reading level? Do they truly care about like the damn 70-30 split of college enrollment between black women and black men? Do they really care? Huh? Because what it looks like, as Diallo said, is that when they have the one up, they throw it in black men's faces. And as I said to FD Signifier, what black women really like to do is weaponize intersectionality against black men. to benign neglect black men and then turn around and be sad and mad and angry that now that it's time to get married, those same men they were defecating on, the same men they did that they were not advocating for, now they deem those men as beneath them. Now they're not doing struggle love. Black women truly believe that you could not advocate for black men, not do for black men, but somehow magically end up with a whole lot of kick-ass black men to marry. No, what's going to happen is y'all going to be in line for the baller black men, and you're going to be in line for the white and Latino men that you deem appealing enough. And if not that, then you're going to be eating vagina or going to sleep in an empty bed. That's it. That's all. Huh? That's it. That's all. You will either do for and with black men, or you will reap the consequences of not doing it. While you hold tight and firm to your ego, talking about what's the incentive. Ain't that right? Real talk with Yanni. You will either advocate for black men. You will either tell other black women to shut the hell up about defecating on black men. You will go advocate for black men in white society. You will speak positively about black men, or you will just deal with the consequences. You and your daughters and your granddaughters will deal with the consequences of being the permanent concubine class for non-black people and for same-sex loving women. That's all. You will relegate yourself to the experiment group. That's all. You will be like what we have seen throughout human history. As boys become men and they come of age and they start feeling themselves, right? And then pubes start growing. You will be the group of girls and women that they experiment with and have fun with and slum with. And then when it's time to get married, they go back to their women or they go to women of other groups. While you look down on black men. That's all. How old is Chrissy? How long has she been swirling? Whoops. Huh? How old is Ostefko? How long has she been swirling? Yikes. Huh? Aisha Taylor, anyone? Oops. Huh? Cheska Lee, anyone? Yikes. What y'all talking about? There is a cost to not advocating for black men. There is a cost to not advocating for black boys. There is a cost to telling black men and black boys that they got to pay fealty to you. That you are the alpha and the omega in the black community. And anything that straight black men or straight black men advocate for, speak about, is coming from a negative place. There's a cost to that. You're not doing the social math. And it's clear that Diallo Kenyatta can see this. And when he speaks about toxicity, he's trying to expand it out to just speak it to only speaking about toxic masculinity. But the black women can't hear it because who occupies the majority of spaces in academia, whether that's students or administrators and professors, black women or black men? Well, then whose narrative is being told? And then not only whose narrative is being told, whose narrative is being subsidized by the dominant society? Oh, damn. Black women refuse to accept that they're being propped up to crush the entire black community that includes them. Right? That includes them. If your narrative has been the predominant narrative for at least 6 decades, and yet you can't really show appreciably how that's benefit the masses of black women, then what have you actually been doing for the past 5 and 6 decades? What have you been doing for the past 5 and 6 decades? All right, fine. Kim Foster. Ms. Bowser, what have you exactly been doing for the past decade and some change that you've had a YouTube channel? Huh? Finding 4 and 5 syllable word ways of insulting black men doesn't count. Finding different ways to say misogyny doesn't count. Finding different ways of saying pick me doesn't count. Tactical patriarchy. Tactical patriarchy. Wow. Talk about you're not holding the line, sisterhood. Sister, you're not holding the line, so I'm going to try to shame you in public in front of other black women by calling you a pick-me, by intellectualizing pick-me and calling it tactical patriarchy. Right? Because the upliftment of all of us, not real upliftment of all of us, is more important than your survival and your comfort. Your individual comfort and your survival and your happiness comes after we defecate on these black men in public in front of the white folks. Right? So yeah, so Diallo does mention, you know, black women and being homeowners and pretty much throwing that in black men's faces. But Diallo, what did you expect? What did you expect? And what did the masses of the black left, black men on the left expect? Y'all been placating black women for decades, and they've only gotten worse. Y'all been Diallo, must I remind you, every time y'all mention women in any way that doesn't have your tongue surgically attached to their assholes on Dr. Jared Ball's channel, Black Power Media, right? Every time y'all mention black women and y'all not lauding them and kissing their ass on Earn Your Liberation, they go after y'all in the comments. They come up and pester y'all and criticize y'all every time. Every time. Now tell me how many black men do that. I'll wait. Huh? Every time they feel like y'all step out of line once, and by the way, stepping out of line means saying anything that's not laudatory. Every time they feel like y'all step out of line just a teeny bit, they on y'all ass. Well, that's the environment y'all created. Right? That's the environment y'all created. Yo, Ed, I'll just highlight it. Right? That's the environment y'all created. And you get what you get. And so when the women go off on you for critiquing their behavior, now what? They went at y'all for brick face. Right? They went after FD for the Simone Biles Owens and Jonathan Owens story. Diallo, you felt a certain way about how women were framing the Simone Biles Owens situation, and you felt a certain way about how they were framing Keke Palmer and Darius Jackson's situation. Yes, because black men have spoiled black women in this way, whether it's conservative black men or liberal black men, whether it's independent black men or libertarian black men. Y'all have spoiled black women in this way by telling them, yeah, you're right. You're acting the way you're acting because black men are incapable and inept. You're right. Yeah, black men are sexist and colorist and misogynist and misogynorous and texturous and featurous and whatever other word black women want to come up with to say they don't pick me. And whatever other word black women want to come up with to say, why am I not treated like an upper middle class white woman? I want to practice negative liberty too. I want to be mean, snarky, and an asshole too. I want to have somebody hemmed up, thrown in jail, maybe killed off of a look too. I want to be able to weaponize damsel in distress too. So yes, Diallo. Yes, Dr. Jared Ball. Yes, Geechee. Yes, FD. Yes, Foreign Man in a Foreign Land. Yes, T1J. Yes, Eddie. Yes, Josh. Yes, Alvin. right? Y'all are going to continue to get that. It's funny. And Ed says, Mr. Z is the official exit interviewer when black women relationships fail with white zaddy. He always starts with, "What did we learn?" Now, what did we learn? Right? But here's the kicker. BGS is right. If they don't go full on pro black after that, they didn't learn nothing. And even the ones that go full on pro black after that, it's still being fueled by. It's still not being fueled from a genuine place. Now, it's up to you whether you care about that or not. But to be honest with you, the rest of them, they didn't learn nothing. We see it all the time, right? When you hear black women say, "Yeah, I've been dating up for 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, and all my situation with white men have been great." You've been so you don't want to get married, because if you do want to be married, then why have you been dating non-black men, particularly white men, for 15 years, and you're trying to tell me all of those situations have been great for 10 years and all of those been great? That's why you're still dating them 10 years later? Shut up, right? Shut up. The thing that gets Z is not really the lies, it's the fact that you actually lied to me and thought I would believe it. It's actually that you think I don't know this environment, in this society, in this country, and how people move and speak and act, non-black people. So let me get this right. The white dudes are being racist to y'all at work. The white dudes are not necessarily being the kindest out in society. But all of a sudden, when it comes time to not just have sex, but be in a relationship and be married, all of a sudden, those same white dudes that were just marching in Charlottesville, those same white dudes with the tiki torches, those same white dudes are okay with marrying black women. Yeah, do you have a couple of Proud Boys that's on that? Absolutely. Is that a preponderance of white dudes? Definitely not. Huh, right? So all those black women talking crap, we already know what they on. You can stop lying now, right? And I agree with this 100. And Ed says, take that they pro-black back to Africa. We don't do zaddy leftovers over here. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And going to what Ismail says and says, that's such a great question, Z. Yeah, so Shay Sade has it on her channel. I covered it also. So there's two different black women. I want to say they're two different black women. Both of them kind of look the same, so it might be the same woman, but I want to say it's two different black women. One of them said something along the lines of, so what if I'm with a racist white dude for 6 months, right? So what is better? Essentially, she said it's better than being ignored and being single. So what if I'm with a white dude that happens to be racist for 6 months? First, let's frame that correctly, because you're still framing it wrong. You're not in a relationship with a white dude, a racist white dude for 6 months. You are being banged out by a racist white dude for 6 months. Ain't no relationship. It's not even a situationship. You are the toy for a racist white dude. You are his sexual plaything. You are his dirty little secret for 6 months. That's what you are. Stop trying to make yourself feel better about being a racist white dude's sexual plaything for 6 months. Number one. Number two, he can probably smell the desperation and the want and damn near need for white validations pouring from your veins, pouring from your pores, right? He can smell it on your breath. I could tell you what else he smells on your breath. Oops. Right? So if you're going to frame it correctly. You're not a girlfriend. You're not even potential. You are the sexual plaything for a racist white dude, right? For 6 months, 9 months, maybe a year if you're lucky. And Ed, that's what it is. And Ed says doing ghetto gaggers is better than no sex at all. So much for celibacy, but that's what it is, isn't it? And y'all like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. But that's what it is, isn't it? And I've said this before. I think I got to say it again today. If Diallo's still listening, which he probably isn't. Um, you know, we allow for women in general in this society, particularly Black women, to get away with a lot just because they frame it like they're the victims. And as long as they frame it with the intersectional lens, as long as they frame these things as they are victims of Black men, Black men's racism, Black men's classism, Black men's colorism, Black men's featureism, texturism, Black men, and you hear this all the time with like brothers from that were raised in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. You hear this narrative that because Black men can't wield power over white men, right? Because they have no power outside of the home, outside of the Black community, they return back to the community and rain terror on LGBTQ Black folks and Black women. And if Black women get to continue to frame the conversation between Black men and Black women in that way, the Black community will always be where it is. Actually, no, it won't. Black men will just do passport bros or SYSBM or stay at home and jack off all day while Black women brag about owning empty ass houses with no kids in it. Oops. Or see, you still said that wrong. Empty ass houses with no kids in it. Maybe a kid from the racist white dude. Maybe you get the oops baby, right? Your lottery ticket. Not really. Right? To see the anger of that Black woman that used to be a prawn star that was speaking about Black men like, oh, they're harassing me. They're harassing me. Ma'am, you had your esophagus jumped in and out of by white dudes on camera. Your throats have racist white babies in there. Right? Your throat was the parking lot for white schlongs. Right? Your tongue has the Klan on it right now. And your anger is towards Black men? Right? Your teeth are whitened and bleached by white freaking hot sauce. Right? You were drinking all type of white men's ranch and blue cheese, and you have the unmitigated gall to be speaking about Black men? Right? Get out of here. And you watch this happen over and over and over again. Because they keep on framing themselves in the conversation as being the victims of Black men. That's all that Black women have to do. And white liberals are going to eat that up. Just like how these Black women eat up anyway. Right? As long as Black women can frame their situation with Black men as them being the victims of Black men, beautiful. And as long as they can frame the matriarchy in the Black community as a egalitarian experiment that Black men refuse to participate in because Black men are trying to uphold a white patriarchy, a white form of patriarchy, right? While Black women are attempting to get the Black community into a firmly egalitarian space instead of calling it what it is, a matriarchy if you want to be kind, a gynocracy if you want to be accurate, that they're trying to name. They're trying to name egalitarian. Right? Just call a thing, man. And that's what you are experiencing, Diallo. That's what you're experiencing. And as long as women, Black women, can always hide behind 4 and 5 syllable words and PhD degrees and master's degrees and advanced degrees, as long as they can hide their sexism and their misandry behind that, as long as Black women can hide behind Alvin and Josh and Eddie, if they can hide their sexism behind Alvin, Josh, and Eddie, and FD Signifier, and T1J, and Foreign Man in a Foreign Land, right? If they can hide it behind, these people consciously, Professor Odie, then we'll continue to get what we have right now. A whole bunch of liars telling us how great the relationships they have with white men is, while really they're at home by their goddamn self with yogurt, Lifetime movies, and the Rose toy on the counter, right? A Rose toy on the light stand. But black men are supposed to take these people seriously, number one. And black men are supposed to advocate for people that celebrate black men going to prison, number two, goddamn. And throwing in black men's faces that they own more homes or have a faster home ownership rate or have, growing entrepreneurship rate over black men. Yeah, that black men are supposed to uphold the matriarchy and fall in line, but don't call it a matriarchy. Uphold the matriarchy, but don't call it a matriarchy because it makes black women feel cringy. Right? So for those of you that have recently come in, we're going to go over some of these points again. And we are speaking about Diallo Kenyatta and his talk about toxic masculinity. So some of this framing, I agree with, right? Some I don't, right? So we're going to go first to Diallo calling himself the hater innovator, which I actually appreciate. I think it's funny, right? He called himself the hater innovator, right? He mentions how black women throw their home ownership rate in black men's faces, right? And how these black men are basement dwellers and they live in a mama basement, et cetera, et cetera. And to Diallo, I say, well, yeah, because who said black women can't be capitalists? Who said black women can't put neoliberal assessment on black men and then deem black men lacking? Who said black women weren't going to back into or moonwalk their way into using white supremacist rhetoric? I've said this before. I think I need to start saying this again. If white supremacy is a club, non-black people are walking in through the front door, right? Non-black people are getting their ticket at the gate, and they're walking in through the front door, especially obviously white folks, definitely WASP white folks, right? White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And excuse my background. I know it's windy. My apologies. Hopefully you guys can still hear me, right? Right? But black people, in this case, black women, are walking in through the back door. So they're making some of the same arguments, but they're just reframing it. They're making much of the same arguments, they're just reframing it. So just like how white feminists framed black men having the vote before women, as black men are now going to start raining down white patriarchy on women in general, that includes white women, black women are saying the same thing. Black feminists, black male feminists are saying the same thing. Ain't that right, Alvin? Huh? Because apparently black men don't have a mind of their own, and black men don't have the political imagination to think of different systems and different ways of doing things. So black men are just going to imitate white men and do a really horrible job at it. But even though they do a really horrible job at it, it's going to hurt women in general. Right? Diallo goes on to say, the number one predictor and preventer of crime in a society is the level of connection people in a population feel towards each other. Right? What's going on, Kev? Kev from Black Men Being Brutally Honest in the house. Right? So, and let's read this again. If the number one predictor and preventer of crime in a society is the level of connection a population feels towards each other, well, what does that say about the black community? And what does that say about black men and how connected black men feel towards black women? It's not like we don't have a bunch of petite bourgeoisie black women talking crap about black men, right? It's not that. We don't have that in the black community. Absolutely not. We don't have a bunch of academic black women intellectualizing their misandry. Absolutely not. That's not a thing in the black community. We don't have a bunch of media personalities, whether that's news or entertainment. Sometimes you can't tell the difference. We don't have a bunch of media personality black women intellectualizing their misandry in front of the white folks. Absolutely not. That's not a thing in the black community now, is it? Huh? We don't have a bunch of black women basking in the matriarchy, gynocracy, if you want to be accurate, of the black community, but doing everything not to call it what it is. We don't have that now, do we? We don't have a bunch of black men ass kissing and placating black women by chastising and beating up and insulting black men and dismissing black men and marginalizing black men's concerns. We don't have that in the black community. Now, do we? Right? Diallo, you said, and this is backed up by the research, the level of connection people in a population feel towards each other. Huh. Now, why would black men not feel connection to black women in a community where black women talk about black men like dogs? Huh? Why wouldn't black men feel a connection towards black women in that environment? All these sexist black men. What's their problem? What's their issue? Huh? Black women are definitely advocating for black men in academia. They're speaking positively about black men. They're telling the white folks stop arresting black men for dumb things, for stupid things, for things they didn't even do wrong. Right? They're saying that, aren't they? Black women are attempting to put out movies and singing about black women and music and every time they get a chance to write an editorial about black men, they're speaking positively about black men, right? And they're speaking positively about other black women that speak up positively about black men, right? You don't have content creators on YouTube being interviewed by major publications because they were calling Tina Knowles a pick-me and a mammy. Huh? You don't have academics who should have something better to do with their life attempting to intellectualize pick-me as a pejorative by calling it tactical patriarchy. We don't have that going on in the black community. So why would black men feel disconnected from black women? Huh? Right? Why would black men feel I wonder. Huh? Why would black men feel disconnected from a community where the black women speak positively about them and don't speak of them like they're a nuisance? That black women care about them, but they're heck with this man again, right? Unfortunately, I care about him, right? Who's the one really referring to who as the ball and chain, the old ball and chain? Is it black men referring to black women as the old ball and chain, or is it black women showing their contempt for black men and showing that they see black men as the old ball and chain? And the second you could cut that chain, you do it. Anyway, who's filing for divorce at about 80% in the black community within 5 years of the marriage? Uh-oh. Right? Diallo goes on to say, society gets the men that it deserves. And as I said earlier, BGS said that like a year ago, right? Society gets the men it deserves. Huh. So the question then becomes, once again, what type of men do the black community deserve? What type of men do black women deserve? Huh? What type of men do black women raise? What type of men do black women give vagina to? What type of men do black women sing their praises? Hmm? I'm not speaking about the black men that black women settle for as a in case of emergency break glass when they're in their 40s and 50s. I'm not talking about those black men. I'm talking about when black women are right and tight and cute and fit. What type of black men are they choosing then when they have a plethora of options? When the men are just falling off the train on the minute, every 5 minutes, just men falling off the train. What type of black men do black women choose then? We're not talking about when she's beat up and beat down and run down, whether she has children or not. We're not talking about on the other side of 35 or 40 or 45 or 50. What type of black women do, excuse me, what type of black men do black women choose when they have all the options in the world before 30? Right? Huh. So when Diallo, when you say society gets the men that it deserves, well, what type of black men does the black community deserve? Then you add on top of that an anti-black system. Huh? Because the Bowsers of the world are definitely speaking positively about black men, aren't they? Chrissy and Yanni are definitely speaking positively about black men, aren't they? Huh? When B. Simone and Real Talk with Yanni are defecating on black male civil rights leaders, because that shows that they respect and revere the black men that literally died for their right to speak negatively about black men. Well, will you look at that? Huh? First person to take a bullet for America, black man. First person to take a bullet in the Civil War, black man. Uh-oh. Black men being murdered, imprisoned, beat up left, right, and center during the civil rights movement. And you turn around and have black women like B. Simone and Real Talk with Yanni defecate on black male civil rights leaders. Huh? Huh? These people are so jealous and so want to be in the spotlight that they dismiss the death of black men by saying, say her name. Are there equal black women being beat up by police officers? Absolutely not. Are there equal amount of black women being killed by police officers? Absolutely not. Are there equal amount of black women being killed by police officers with or without arms? Nope. Absolutely not. And yet, and yet, the fight for white attention, which by the way does not decrease the violence and the murder of black people by the state, black women were so hell-bent on getting even that attention, they started a movement called Say Her Name for the 1/10 of the population of black men, of black men that are black women that were being murdered by the police. Say her name, even though 1/10 of us are the ones that are victims, right? And y'all give Mr. Z 1 second, y'all talk amongst yourselves. And we're back, right? So when we speak about the society gets the men that it deserves, well, I would like to direct you to the black community. Now, continuing, Diallo goes on to say, men don't make themselves. Men are a product of the myths, the outlooks, the standards, the demands of his society. Oh boy. Black men, do y'all want to speak about what the myths of black women towards black men are? What are the myths that black women hold about black men, right? What are the outlooks that black women have for their black boys that are eventually going to become black men? What are the standards that black women hold black men up to? What are the demands that black women have of black men? Uh-oh, right? Let's say that again. What are the myths? What are the outlooks? What are the standards? What are the demands that the black community has for black men, black women namely have of black men, right? Uh-oh, right? And let's read this. And Elder Blood says, now we know what what the trash, I want to say, let me see what trash really is. It's been black women the whole time. What is even more alarming is the fact black women don't mind. She is only gold to dumb black men. Look, we have a preponderance of petite bourgeoisie black women that are a problem for black men. Then we have the hood sisters that just want to do what they want to do and want black men to fund it, right? So you're being put in a pincer move by the Sukianas on one side and the Bowsers on the other side, right? The Ebony K. Williams on one side and the Sexy Red on the other side, right? Are there everyday regular ass black women? Yes. Are they about advocating for black men? Absolutely not. They don't want to go against the sisterhood. Those women get married, move into the burbs, or at least if they're in the hood, they're quiet and they go home every night and they don't say nothing to their a-hole sisters. They're academically inclined, intellectual a-hole female cousins. They just stay married and they don't speak positive about their husband, even if their husband is the best man in the world. Right? It's simple. The women that are doing okay and the women that are happy with their husbands and their lives and their kids, they don't talk. The women that are miserable talk a lot. And there you go. Right? The women whose lives are great, the women who man is looking out, the women who man is playing his role, and she's playing her role and she's happy, she doesn't say anything. She doesn't fight back against when she go to brunch with some of her family or her friends or her associates and they talking crazy about black men, she don't say nothing. She might actually tacitly agree just so she could not look like the idiot. And that's the problem. Right? Huh. Right? Diallo goes on to say, instead of being an aberration that a man is toxic, but instead the men of the society are toxic, then the institutions are toxic, the values are toxic, the economy is toxic, the women are also toxic. Once again, black women speaking about black men's toxicity in a vacuum. In a vacuum. How do you occupy a community with a group of people that said, I'm only doing wrong because you're wrong? And that's if they even acknowledge that they're doing wrong. That's even if they acknowledge that they're doing something detrimental to not only your health, but their health in the long run. Right? If the institutions are toxic and the values are toxic and the economy is toxic and the women are toxic, what type of black men are we expecting to be produced out of the black community? When Diallo says these women are looking for a capitalist in the streets and a revolutionary in the sheets, exactly. And once again, Elder Blood, thank you for the super chat. Exactly. But they don't want to own their hypocrisy. What you fundamentally have are a bunch of women, and this one is regardless of race, that don't want to own their hypocrisy. The only women that's kind of owning it, just a little smidge, little bit, are some of the conservative women. Some. But leftist women, oh, you better believe they're not. As y'all have heard me say, instead of calling hypergamy, they want to call it assortative mating. Right? Instead of calling it class mate guarding, they want to call it assortative mating. That's their excuse for explaining away why in a capitalist society where women are earning more and more every year, more and more every decade, women are outpacing men in college degrees. Why is it that the same women that can afford to be single are the least likely to be single? And when we talk about single, we're talking about married or not married. Why is it that the women that can afford to be single the most are the ones that are married the most? Right? And instead of us addressing the hypocrisy of college-educated feminist women who still marry men, go off into the sunset, go have their 2.3 kids in the burbs, while they still talking that feminist crap, mainly to working class and poor and working poor women, instead of addressing the hypocrisy that is these women's life, they turn around and say assortative mating. Right? Instead of them acknowledging and accepting that they're freaking hypocrites. And all that sounds nice until you got to pay these bills. Right? So let's get this right. Women that are doing well in life turn around and marry men that are doing as well financially, educationally, as well as them or better. Maybe just a smidge under them, but for the most part, as well as them or better. Then they turn around and preach feminism and toxic masculinity and patriarchal talk to women who are financially beneath them. So that wealth gap that existed between those two women when they were just individuals turns into a chasm as that college educated woman, that well-to-do woman, that aspirational woman turns around and marries a man on her level or above. Uh-oh. Right? So when we talk about toxic values, when we talk about a toxic economy, for those of you that were listening in, did not just compare black men to Elon Musk. Oops. Bill Gates. Yikes. Mark Zuckerberg. Uh-oh. All of these white men sharks. All of them. All of them have been brought into Congress for messed up business practices, right? All of them, right? Jeff Bezos, all of them. So black men are being compared to men that, first of all, black women would not marry because they think they're ugly, but they will get some money off of, right? Mr. Z, you still said that wrong. These women would marry them. Stop playing. Stop playing. And they'll hold their nose every time this dude is jumping in and out of them. So when we speak about where black women find themselves, when we speak about the toxic economy, when we talk about toxic women, we don't talk about Diallo mentioned it, but that's not something we speak about very often in the black community, like not seldom, not actually not ever. If toxic women are mentioned, we instantly go to the Candace Owens of the world as if there's not a Bowser. As if there's not an Ebony K. Williams. As if there's not a L'Oreal. As if there's not a Melissa Ford. Huh? As if there wasn't a Uchechi from Grapevine. Huh? When we speak about toxic women, we make it seem like it's exclusively a Mia Love, Kim Klacik, Amala, whatever the hell her last name is, Candace Owens type thing. No, no, absolutely not. It's not just a conservative black woman thing. Nope, nope. That's not what y'all not gonna do. Hmm? Huh? Right? It's just that women don't want to own their hypocrisy. They don't want to own their hypocrisy. And that's the part that, well, the black left struggles with. Black men and black women. When you can watch as Alvin just straight up tell y'all, yeah, I'm gonna dismiss everything y'all talking about. If you can watch Alvin say that, then what else do you need to see? What else do you need to hear? What else do you need to hear? Right? Huh. So where do we go from there? Y'all give Mrs. Z 1 second. Y'all talk amongst yourselves. And we're back. And Elder Blood says the thing to crush black women is when they find out more white women, white men, excuse me, more white men is going to heaven with black men while black women go to perdition, perdition because they had their heaven on earth with white men. Elder Blood. Okay. I don't know about that. I think what's going to hurt black women the most is black men's indifference. As I said before, I really think it's the nonchalant. I think it's going to be here on earth. And it's not really about hurting black women. This is not really about hurting black women. This is about saying to black women, you can't expect to keep on speaking like this about black men and actually be indifferent to black men's plight and actually demand that black men pay fealty to you. You can't expect to create and to help bolster an environment that's detrimental to black men, and then on the other end, you still benefit. You still benefit from black men, from being associated with black men in their plight, and from being associated to black men and their success. Where you benefit from dead black men, and you benefit from black men who are succeeding. You can't expect to marginalize black men in their own community and turn black men into second-class citizens within their own community and then turn around and benefit from them. That's just not how the world works. And I think that's what's going to hurt black women. When black women do the math and realize that, guess what? Not all of you are going to end up with ballerific ass black men. Wealthy black men, rich black men, upper middle class black men. And those of you that don't end up there, you're not going to get the white dude either. Right? When black women realize that, I think that's what hurts them. And it's, once again, it's not about, this is not about hurting black women and finding some glee in it. This is about saying what you're not going to do is hurt black men, and then black men find some glee in it, or black women find some glee in it, and then still demand that black men be and do what black women need and want black men to be. Right? That's not what's going to happen. And that, that might hurt black women a little bit, a lot of bit. Right? That's going to hurt black women a little bit because they took for granted their position. Black women have took for granted their petite bourgeoisie position over black men. Black women took for granted the matriarchy and the gynocracy. Right? That's where we are right now. They took that for granted. And that's why you see even people like FD here and there mentioning something. That's why you see people like, and you watch Amanda Seales, on that interview, act like she don't know why Kevin Samuels was a hit with men. Because of women like you. For hypocrites like you. For hypocrites like Bowser. The reason why Kevin Samuels was a hit is because women like you took for granted Oprah and Sally Jesse Raphael and Ricky Lake. Y'all took that for granted. Y'all thought that was the new normal. That's why Kevin Samuels was a hit. Right? Kevin Samuels was a hit because men were tired of going to Thanksgiving dinner and their purple hair for white men, and for black men, their septum ring having ass girl cousin talking crap in their head. That's why. Intellectualizing homosandry. That's why. That's why Kevin Samuels was a hit. Black men got tired of their septum ring pass around for white dude's ass girl cousin coming back from college during Thanksgiving dinner talking crap about black men and intellectualizing homosandry. Meanwhile, the food that she's eating was cooked by her mom, but paid for by her dad. Oops. And the car that she's driving in college was paid for by her dad. Yikes. And the little $200 she's getting every month is paid for by her dad. Oops. Uh-oh. Well, will you look at that? Hmm? So when we have sexist black women in the black community that's able to talk about black men the way they do, that's how we get a Kevin Samuels. It's as a response. He didn't just pop up out of nowhere. As Diallo said, the society gets the men that it deserves, right? Dennis Sperling calls himself, attorney Dennis Sperling calls himself the Snow King. In other words, y'all made fun of and mocked Kevin Samuels when he was alive. You celebrated him when he celebrated his death when he passed away. And so, time for the Snow King. Winter is here. You get the men you deserve. You get the men you deserve. Right? That's what we have. So the black manosphere exists because none of y'all said anything, or very few of you said anything, black women, about Gayle King trying to press Lisa Leslie, or Blizzard King, my apologies, right? That's what attorney Dennis Sperling calls himself. Very few of you said anything about Gayle King trying to press Lisa Leslie to give him a particular type of answer. That is why we have. That is why we have a black manosphere. That's why it exists. And y'all give Mrs. Z 1 second. right? And Ishmael says, or Gail King trying to son Snoop. No, Susan Rice trying to son Snoop. Exactly, Ishmael. Yeah, yeah. It was Susan Rice. It was Susan Rice, right? So that's the environment we're in. You know, shout out to Diallo for saying that. I still don't agree with the framing, right? But this is getting so out of hand that even they have to address it. Y'all like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. This is so getting so out of hand that even they have to address the y'all notice black men on the left slowly starting to say some things, right? And I would argue that's for two reasons. First, we're in election, maybe three. First, we're in election season. Secondly, y'all done spoil the women so bad, so much that they talking reckless to y'all. You've spoiled black women so much with your kiss ass rhetoric and your placating ass rhetoric that they even come after y'all when they feel like y'all step one big toe out of line. And number three, it's so blatant you can't even ignore it anymore. Black women's hypocrisy, their sexism, their misandry is so blatant you can't even ignore it, even if you wanted to. Even if y'all wanted to ignore black women's sexism, misandry, and in your face genocidal speak, genocidal rhetoric, right? Even if y'all wanted to, you couldn't, right? So yeah, y'all gonna have to address this. And there's a couple of routes that y'all can go with it, but what we see is the Dr. Umar Johnsons of the world still trying to shame black men. Imagine telling a wife to give up her money for that her husband earned in his lifetime because she's not black. Man, if you don't get the entire hell, look, I'm not even into non-black women like that. But Dr. Umar, stop it. Okay, that sounds nice. That sounds nice. That's one of those fake ass gestures. You know, when a politician abstains or when he votes a particular direction and he's voting that direction because it was going to lose anyway. That's a cute gesture, Dr. Umar Johnson. Stop it. Well, you ain't black, so you don't. Kobe Bryant did that for the community, and he's part of the community. No, stop it. I'm not even into non-black women like that, but that's insane to tell a woman, hey, you got to give up that money because you ain't black, because he was black. After black women dance on his grave. You imagine? That's insane. That's crazy. And that, but it's real though. It's real, right? Imagine saying that to a widow. Imagine saying that to a widow. Imagine white society saying that to a black woman. Now, can they find ways of getting that money up out of her? Of course they can. We know where we live. We know what society we occupy. But imagine Dr. Umar Johnson sitting down listening to one of these white racist dudes say, "Yeah, she ain't white. You better give it up." Okay, fine. Iman. Imagine them telling Iman, "Hey, you better give up David Bowie's money. We want all of it because you're not white, right? Give it up, right?" That would be insane because it's insane. We would look at it insane because it is insane, right? That's crazy. But that's how to. That's Doctor. Come on, man. And then Dr. Umar Johnson going on to Daily Wrap Up Crew to chastise those brothers for not advocating for black women enough, for not marrying black women, for what? Right? And Chef Kojo Prime says, Brother Z, I was called a passport bro when I said to a black woman, I'm going to Africa to find my wife. My parents are from Ghana. Brother, you should have embraced it. I don't know why y'all, but look, I'm all about saying I'm not, but if I was, what would be the problem? I'm not, but if I was, what would be the problem? Why shouldn't I be a passport bro? Put it back on them. Why shouldn't I be a passport bro? Because black women show me and other black men love and care, right? They're kind to black men, right? They're caring and they show concern for, like, they advocate for black men, right? They speak positively about black men when black men are there and when black men aren't there, right? What? Why wouldn't I be what's wrong with passport bros? What's wrong with saying, you know what? I want, okay, and I'll lean into it. Well, y'all going over there to have cheap sex. And if I was so, y'all let these people frame these things. And if I was so, first of all, no, I'm going over there to find a wife because America doesn't produce wives anymore. It produces off-brand white men, white women that are not white. Exhibit AU. But even if I was going to Ghana to have sex, and so what if I was going to Ghana for cheap sex? And the problem is what? Y'all should see Mr. Z's face right now. Y'all going over there for cheap sex. Okay. And the problem is, I'm not going to alpha my way for women that have contempt for me and that barely can hold it and pretend like they don't. And want me to pay an exorbitant amount for their resting B face. And for the fact that she feel like she settles for me because I'm not the person that she really would want to be with. A lot of money for that. Right? Why would I pay a crazy amount of money for that? Who does that? Yeah, you're supposed to pay $250 and $300 and $150 and $350 on the first date for a woman that's just treating you like you're a foodie call because you know you're a foodie call. Why would you have a problem with that? Why do you have a problem with being seen as a walking wallet? Remember how I responded? For those of you that never checked out the stream, I did a video a little while after Jess popped up on BGS's channel, one of the first times she popped up on BGS's channel. And she was saying about to passport bros, like, yo, those women only want you for your money, and they only, they see you as a lick and they see you as a come up, and they, they wouldn't give you a chance if it wasn't for this and it wasn't for that. And Mr. Z response was, and black women in America and just American women and westernized women are different because wait, black women in America haven't made it abundantly clear that they see black men as nothing but walking phalluses and walking wallets? Uh-oh. You're a walking phallus and you're a walking wallet. So me going to Ghana for another woman that sees me the same way but is cheaper and more compatible and more pliable, and that's a problem because see, you would have a leg to stand on, dear black women in America. You would have a leg to stand on if you weren't literally saying the same thing and if you didn't cost more. They just want you for your money and you don't. What, you don't want me for my money? Why? Because you have a college degree? Well, you don't want me for my money because you work in an office somewhere? Huh? What, you don't want me for my money because you push a Benz that you could barely afford, a BMW that you could barely afford, an Audi that you could barely afford? Even if you can afford all those things, okay, and you make a good, cool 120 a year, you got a nice apartment, you got your own place, you're doing well for yourself, but you still don't want me for my money? Huh? Right? And Chief Kojo says, Z, will you open up a stream for a panel? I'm not in the position to do that right now. This is still partially reckless streams, partially, right? So we should be tomorrow. That's the goal. Tomorrow, right? And thank you, Jimmy. Excuse me. And low key darkness says cost more, also greater risk. Dear American women, Americanized women, Black American women, um, you would have the leg to stand on when you make these, I guess, appeals at morality. I guess if you didn't think of men the same way. See, if you weren't speaking about Black men the same way you're saying these other women see Black men, then maybe you would have a leg to stand on. But you said, right? And shout out to that Nigerian Black woman that was on Black Talk in Britain. That's where Real Talk with Yanni got her. I want to be a kept woman of leisure. She got it from the Nigerians. I want to say she was Nigerian, sister by way of Britain. A man is his money. See, dear Black westernized women, if you weren't saying things like that, then maybe you would have an argument towards passport bros going overseas and women seeing them as nothing but walking wallets. But you've expressed yourself that men are nothing but walking wallets. Ain't that right, Chrissy? You expressed yourself that you're okay with being objectified because you objectify men as nothing but resource providers. Huh? This is the funniest thing in the world. Y'all like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. It's the funniest thing in the world. Right? Huh. You have a bunch of women born and raised in the spitting image of Milton Friedman, Ayn Rand, Frederick Hayek. They believe in Reaganomics and trickle-down economics. They're classist, elitist a-holes or want to be elitist a-holes. They either are or want to be part of the petite bourgeoisie of the Black community. And then they turn around and try to moralize and moral police and play moral high ground with Black men that are passport bros. Where do they do that at? For Melissa Ford to have an issue with passport bros, you're Melissa Ford. You literally said on that same video, on that same panel, that Black men don't realize that Black women choices aren't limited to just Black men. Y'all could date out. L'Oreal tells you that her Black homegirls are telling her Italian men worship. I didn't say love. Worship. I didn't say adore. Worship. I didn't say care for Black women. Italian men worship Black women. And yet Melissa Ford is going in and trying to chastise and insult passport bros. Huh. Huh. Chastise passport bros, but then speak about how black women aren't limited to white men. Huh. Fascinating, right? Mean, snarky, a-hole black women. And I mean that directed particularly to black men. Then turn around and chastise black men who say, yeah, I don't got to deal with this. And dear black women, if you feel the same way and there's a white man that catches your eye and he's interested in you, then by all means. A Latino man that catches your eye, and go ahead. But I think you'll find that black men will be far more successful in dating and marrying out than black women. Number one, black women don't want to spend money on penis. Number two, once you get out of the West, the general income for men plummets. I said it before. Black women have about 24-ish countries to choose from if they want to get somewhat of a comparable income earner to what your average man makes in America. We're not talking about a foreign dignitary or some corrupt leader's child or somebody that has a business overseas and they making buku money. No, no, no. Your average dude in Afghanistan or India, China or Japan. Well, that's not Japan. Take that back. China, Angola, Chad, Belize, right? Chile, Ecuador, right? Any one of the Baltic states. You pretty much have about 24-ish countries to choose from between the Canadas and the Britons and the Frances and the Germanys and the Japans and the, well, I can't even say South Korea. Black men, on the other hand, uh-oh. But that's what I'm saying. And Namath says, not Chad or Angola, too unstable. But that's my point. The countries I listed before were the countries not comparable income. Unless you're going to pay for peen, you got about 24 countries, ladies. Stop calling black men's bluff. It's not going to work in your favor, I promise you. And Pablo says, and thank you for the super chat, go read studies on what happens to your body when you don't have sex. Prostate cancer, hypertension, etc. Well, Western women think they can starve your average man out for sex and then meet him on the back end, right? Shout out to Accountable Commentary, the reach back, right? And that's all it is. They're going to have fun being the pass around for white dudes, being the pass around for Latino dudes, being the pass around for guys that they think are capable or guys that they're interested in, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then when they run out of steam and those wrinkles start showing, right? That's when it's about time for me to settle down with a quote unquote good guy. And I wonder, I think maybe, possibly, maybe
And we, especially for younger Xers, millennials, definitely. Um, let's see how true that is still, because there. I have a right mind to say I think we're dealing with a different generation when you, especially when you speak about younger Xers, millennials, and Gen Z. Their ego is so big, it's so great. I think these women aren't even going to do the reach back like that. I think when you look at younger Xers, millennials, and Gen Z, they truly have commodified men to the point, and when they say no struggle love, I think I think a lot of them mean it. I think older Xers and boomers meant it too, but I think we're gonna see how right or wrong Z is as we age, especially for those of us under the age of like 50, 48, 50. We'll see. But I don't, I think their ego is so great. I don't think they're even going to try to reach back. I think they're just going to die alone. I think Kevin had it spot on. And when I'm saying that, I'm not saying all. I'm saying a preponderance, a large ass minority at the least. I think they're going to die alone. I really think you're going to see, especially with younger Xer women in general, black women specifically. I think their ego is so great. I don't even think, and shout out to Accountable Commentary, I don't even think they're going to do the reach back. I'm not saying none of those women are going to do the reach back, but I think they're going to still hold out for a dude that's even older than them that got it like that. Or for the desperate dude with some money that just want to spend it on someone before he dies. And he's willing to spend it for someone that'll be a companion before he dies. I really think the 50-year-old and 48-year-old Xers, the 51 and 52-year-old Xers, I really think they might try to hold out. Right? So when you say that, Pablo, about the studies and what they show, I I think those women are hoping to catch, like some of these women are hoping for they're gonna attempt to do the reach back, but I don't think it's like what we often say in the black manosphere. I think a lot of those women are gonna hold on to their egos and they're just gonna wither away and die alone, right? And you got to remember, once you start getting into the Xers, that's when you start getting more and more women with no children, especially when you get into some of the younger Xers, even black women. Once you get into the millennials, you really dealing with women with no children. So when I say die alone, I like mean it. Especially those of them that got a couple of dollars so they have their own house. Yeah. I could get real morbid on what this is going to look like in the next few decades. You got your own place and you don't got no man and no kids, no next to kin. It is very possible nobody notices until your body start to stink up the block, right? Nobody notices you gone until your body start to stink up the block, right? But what I'm saying here remains to be seen. It's definitely possible. Like BGS has said, let's see how big their ego is as they start to starve. So he's right. Or as they just start to get older and become more lonely. So, yeah, let's be honest, you know, that's a thing. Human connection is a thing. But as I said before, dear women, if you moving and thinking and operating like you Milton Freeman and you put an insane price tag on your companionship, first, most men can't afford it. Secondly, even if they could, why would they pay it? Right? So there's that. But that remains to be seen. We'll see. that. But yeah, the no sex thing, women think they can starve out the average dude, and that way when they do the reach back, if they do the reach back, when they do the reach back, and you hear Jason Black speaking about this too, right? He started mentioning this also on his channel, which is a lot of dudes are gonna start getting women that they never thought they could get before, right? Used to be nines, used to be eights, used to be sevens. As they do the reach back, and you now you think you big, and I'm obviously rephrasing some of what he said and adding my own spin to it. But now these brothers and just men in general are gonna think they big pimping. You're not big pimping, bro. She's desperate, right? You transitions into your 40s, and she desperate. You're not big pimping, bro. Huh? And that's all. Look what Oliver says. Human connection is necessary. Long-term married couple immune systems actually synchronize. Look, see? Huh? But then once again, well, the one thing I got to give Diallo about when he was speaking about the toxicity in the system, if the women adopt the toxicity in the system also, and they actually enculturate their men and their boys in it, and then they want to see that coming from their male spouses, guess what that means? That means you put a price tag on your vagina. You turned, and by the way, Mr. Z understands that women, excuse me, women are hypergamous. This is not an anti-hypergamy rant, but it is to say if you put a price tag, an insane price tag on that hypergamy, if you take the hypergamy knob and you break it, you turn it from 10, you break it on 12 and 13, then you get what you get, right? Uh, and Prodigy says, I think that might have been a typo, but he says, Z, is there a difference between the reach back and the epiphany phase? That's a good question. I would say, the way accountable commentary, because I got to give him the credit for this, the way he speaks about the reach back and then the way we speak about the epiphany phase, I would say they're different. Or better yet, maybe a distinction without a difference, because I think the end result is still pretty similar, which it does result in some reach back, even for the women that had an epiphany phase. But the reach back, the epiphany phase is realizing, oh crap, I can't do what I used to do. I can't pull how I used to pull. I'm not the cute chick in the club anymore. I'm not getting VIP treatment anymore. Men are not hollering at me like how they used to. The young dudes are looking at me like target practice, right? The old dudes are calling me an old hag, right? When we talk about epiphany phase, I think that's what we're saying. We're talking about the reach back that might or might not include self-awareness. That might or might not include being aware of where you are currently positioned with age and weight and personality and whatnot. The reach back might just be the reach back out of desperation, from my understanding of how accountable commentary speaks on it and how he describes it, right? So the reach back might, at least from how I see it, the reach back might or might not include some introspection, right? Where the epiphany phase looks like it includes some introspection, some, once again, at least open enough to realize where you are currently positioned in the society and be like, ooh, okay, I am not in an advantageous position. I am behind the 8 ball, right? So yeah. Both of them pretty much result in the reach back though. And the reach, by the way, when we, at least when I think of the reach back, when accountable commentary speaks on it, it's both and, right? It's both women that you literally know or used to know, ex-girlfriends, maybe an ex-wife, maybe a situation that coulda, shoulda, woulda popped off, but it never did. Y'all both had a vibe, but it just never connected. Or she kind of sidelined you, Steve Harvey, and now she's reaching back. So the reach back could include that, or the type of women that used to ignore the type of men that you are, and now she's reaching back to the type of men that you are, and it happens to be you, right? So it's the girl that was chasing. Let's say she wasn't chasing after D boys. Okay, she was chasing after aspirational rappers, and athletes and entertainers, right? And you stayed steady on your blue collar route or your white collar route, and now you make 75, 80, 90, 100, 120, 150 a year. Now, where that was funny to her when she was in her 20s, now she's doing the reach back for those type of dudes, which you happen to be one in your late 30s, in your 40s, right? So when I think of the reach back, it could be either an individual woman that you literally came in contact with, or it could be the type of women who used to look over and ignore the type of men that you are, but now she's quote unquote interested. Maybe, probably still not, but desperation, right? And once again, thank you for the super chat, Pablo. And KMS says, let's keep this up for a little while. To the Super Bowl Chicken Wing Fund, hysterical. Thank you, Z. The Black Women HR Department rep. Shout out to Edwin Anderson. Ed got so many names for me. Right? I appreciate you and what you do. I didn't fire you, Black women. You fired yourself. For real. I'm gonna address that in a minute because I think I love that statement. I'm just processing your exit papers, Z, Mr. Z. No, seriously though, I want to be very clear what we're saying. Even with everything, and we're gonna keep this on the hush hush in the Black manosphere. Even with everything I just said, all of us know that black men are still laying on their stomach with their feet kicking in the air, right? Waiting on black women's phone call. It's black women's egos that still make them think they're better than black men, and they're not going to quote unquote settle. Even with everything I just said over the past 2 hours, black men still are more open to black women with their snarkiness, with their overweight, with their highlighter green weave, with their septum ring. I don't know about being the pass around for white dudes. I think that's where most black men draw the line. But for some, yes, still, even with all of that, there are black men that are still waiting for these same black women, whether they be a snarky a-hole white collar black woman or the snarky a-hole, right, menial worker black woman. Right? Even with all of that, it's black women's ego. Look at what black men have to deal with black women, and yet who files for divorce at like 80%? Right? Even with everything I just said, who files for divorce at 80%? That's why black women act and move the way they do. Because black men still deal with black women, even with all of that attitude and snark and meanness and mommying and condescending, and black men still marry them, and then black women turn around and divorce your ass anyway. So it's funny you say that because it really is them firing themselves. That's funny, KMS, because it's true. Ishmael said, Nazi can't do the septum ring, reformed Brad pass arounds. I agree. I agree. Right? I agree. Which is crazy because I wish they would have fought. And Compassionate says, Z is your version of the ambassador Negro who 300 Leonidas kicked into the hole. I wish they would have fought because how is it that he's the one who trained Xerxes, but then Leonidas just kicks him into a hole and that's it? Right? They way overplayed Leonidas in that. I get Spartans training regimen, and they're a warrior, pretty much a warrior clan of Greeks in the Greek city states. I get it, but they way and first of all, that series is racist as hell. We not that's a whole different conversation. Um, this is the over glorification of Western civilization because it's the start of Western civilization, right? With the Greeks. Yeah, that there's so much to say about the movie 300 and how it's a bunch of white folks versus everybody else, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you ever watched, if you so the second one that shows, the second one that was based off of the captain. What is his name? It started with a T. Did it start with I can't pronounce it. So he was the one who didn't lose to the Persians. So the well, it took a while. It took a while. But so where Leonidas lost to the Persians, typically, yeah. So yeah, yeah. So I had it right, but I just can't pronounce it. The uh, okay, I'm not gonna even try on this name, y'all. This name, that name. Anyway, but yeah. So I knew it. Yeah, yeah. Him. So he was the pretty much the fleet captain for the Greeks. And was he? He was not. He was not Spartan though. I think he was Athenian. I want to say that. But anyway, in the movie where so I already, well, the movie is loosely based off of the actual story. But anyway, so when they show his story, they show Xerxes being trained by the brother that got kicked in the hole, right? So how is it you training Xerxes? I mean, yeah, how is it that you're training Xerxes? And by the way, Xerxes starts with X. But how are you training Xerxes? But you get kicked in the hole easy, like not even a fight, and then you lose. At least with the movie, um, God damn, it's right there, Troy. At least with the movie Troy, they show, was it Peter? Yeah, he lost to God damn, the name is right there. That Brad Pitt played with the wings on his ankle. Well, that's the mythology. Um, God damn, it's right there. Anyway, but yeah, at least it was a good fight, and then Peter lost. Right. So like, but with this one, they just kicked in the hole, kick quick, fast, in a hurry. Yeah, he's Athenian. Yeah, 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 yeah. Thank you. Right. So yeah, but yeah, I think what KMS said here was right. It's black women that fire themselves, and I think the older black woman that spoke about in the video, many of us have seen this video before. The older black woman that speaks about divorcing her husband and then being bedded by a bunch of men afterward, and her ex-husband, then goes on to marry and live an okay life, and she's over here, racking up body count, and now she regrets it. I think she spoke volumes. She thought she was better than her husband because she was doing well at work, and she was financially, apparently better off than he was, and so she divorced him because she thought she could do better, and then she's racking up bodies, you know. Yeah. Achilles, thank you. Achilles, no, it's Achilles. It's Achilles. Thank you. Thank y'all. Low Key Darkness, J Mills, right? And Hit Flicks, yes. Yeah, right. And so, hey, and by the way, in that movie, that's not see. Whenever they portray white people in the past, they don't want to call them gay. That was not his cousin. That's his boyfriend. Y'all notice that in Troy, right? They made it seem like Achilles, the dude that Achilles was really close with, they made it seem like that was his cousin. That was not his cousin. That was his boyfriend in the real story, right? I think I said this before, and Compassionate backed me up on this. It was the funniest thing in the world watching 300 and Leonidas over here talking about the Athenians. Oh, those boy lovers. Wait a minute. I know Spartans ain't talking about boy lovers, right? I know the Spartans ain't calling the Athenians boy lovers, which by the way they were, but so were you. Man, if y'all, but once again, you let racist white folks give the story of the Greek city states, and of course they get, especially those Christian fundamentalists, right? And they use Western civilization and white supremacy interchangeably. You let them talk. You let them write a script, well, write a book, and then turn it into a movie. And of course, you're gonna play down that the Spartans was gay as hell and they were tyrants and they were sellouts. At the end of the Greek story, the Spartans switch sides to the Persians and they're sellouts. And you want to know what leads to the end of the Spartans? They pretty much die out because they weren't having kids. Dumbass. And we could kick your ass. Oh, don't worry, I'll just wait a couple of centuries. Y'all will die out. What's the point of being strong and kicking ass if you can't live long enough? And you're gonna sell out. Right? See, that's the part of the movie they don't talk about. Right? Huh. And Saint Cyr says, because I have Corey Holcomb has a joke about this. That's why I want to read this. And Saint Cyr says, funny thing is, Z, that happens across racial lines. Think you can do better, get divorced, then back wandering the streets lonely and messed up. And Corey Holcomb, for many of us that's seen this before, and once again, KMS, thank you for the super chat. And Corey Holcomb has a line where he says, "Which, you gonna divorce? You gonna leave me because I cheat on you? Well, now it's a stranger cheating on you, bruh." It's funny because it's true. You better believe Mr. Z said it before to his lady. And I'm not even cheating, but I definitely said it before. Right? When you gonna leave me because I cheated on you? Fine. And now you're gonna have a new dude that's cheating on you. When y'all are dating, you think he's just dating you? You in a rotation. Right? It's dear ladies, I back up Kevin and Obsidian when they say, if you were cheated on and you want to divorce or leave, definitely understandable. That's within your right. With that said, if we're gonna be practical, right? If we're gonna be utilitarian here, I'm not condoning cheating. Yes, it's a double standard. Yes, absolutely. I'm not condoning cheating. I'm just saying. You gotta leave your man who cheated on you for another dude who's probably gonna cheat on you. It's messed up. Yeah, life is not fair. Yes. Double standard. Absolutely. Right. And Hitflix says people are real mad that Netflix new Alexander show reveals he's gay. So if you ever watch the movie, it plays around with it. Like it doesn't go I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna Z don't say it. I'm gonna say it. Right? It doesn't go all the way there. Right? But it shows it like talks around it. Essentially, the movie talks around that he is that, because the dude that you saw him having like quote unquote intimate moments with was his man, and from my understanding, his mom had to practically beg him to conceive with his wife. His mom said, "Hey, yo," right? No, seriously, from my which when he died, his the wife and the child were killed, but his mom had to beg for him to produce an heir, right? And Saint Cyr says, "Oh, the white boys are mad about the new Netflix special on Alexander the Great. They're trying to claim he wasn't bi." Man, buddy, come on, stop it, man. How many of the Greeks were straight, like straight? First of all, what Alexander of Macedon, his dad was the one who united Greece, pretty much how Otto von Bismarck did with Germany, right? And he was out of here. Y'all running campaigns, ooh, funny. Y'all running campaigns of war all the way to India. Come on, stop. It's a bunch of sweaty dudes with spears and skirts on a hike. That sounds like a white gay fantasy. A bunch of dudes with spears with skirts on a hike across 2 continents. I'm just saying. Somewhere is a white gay dude salivating over the notion. Right? There's a whole at least Game of Thrones showed how the Europeans was getting down way back when, right? Like 1,000 years ago. At least Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones is like loosely based, excuse me, off of the Europeans. Right? At least they showed how they was getting down, because everybody was getting down. Right? Oliver, I'm even gonna read it out loud. Hysterical. Right? And Elder Blood says, before you get into the other confusing racial hablo groups, you have only 2, which is Neanderthal and non-Neanderthal heritage bloodline groups. Well, thanks to European colonialization, I think, what did I read? Pretty much everyone that's outside of sub-Saharan Africa has a bit of quote unquote Neanderthal blood now. Right? Because when the Africans first migrated out of Africa, they had relations with Neanderthals, and obviously all of us black people was super straight until the Europeans said, knock knock, who's there? It's us, we're coming to enslave you. Right? So West Africans, Liberians, those, especially those of American descent, Black Caribbeans, Black or Afro Latinos, South Africans, that definitely mixed South Africans. All of us are now part of that, unfortunately, because European colonization and white men not be able to keep their penis in their pants. That part. And Saint Cyr says they practice pedestry in those societies. Yep. Right. Hey, I'm gonna train you and I'm gonna pipe at the same time. What? What? I'm gonna be your mentor and I'm gonna pipe at the same time. What? I'm gonna show you how to be a real man. Ugh. We gotta take you away from your mom and train you how to be a real man. Right. I guess it's train during the day and bang during the night. Ew. Right. Yeah, and Hitflix says, I think we have at least 2% Neanderthal. That's what they say. That's what they say. Hitflix, you're not supposed to join in on the joke. And Hitflix says, hell. And Hitflix says, they taught them how to handle a spear. Oh God. Oh, it's funny because it's true and disgusting. Right? Adric said, pause. Pause, son. Right? Man. But it's true, though. No, seriously, though. No, Calvin, no, for serious. And Calvin said, damn, those buttonholes was wide open. No, serious. That, you know, that's, yeah, that's, hey. That's how they was getting down. That's how they still get down. That's how they still get down. Kids and dudes. You know, I'm gonna leave that one there, but you know, it's not my style. But yeah, kids and dudes. Epstein Island, anyone? Anyway, I'm gonna leave that one alone. Right. And ever since I was a kid, I don't think anyone had to tell Z rules for thee, not for me. Right. Socially unacceptable for thee, not for me. Like, I don't think anyone had to teach me about these people's hypocrisy, right? I don't think anyone had to teach. And then, you know, growing up and you're hearing these stories of conservative politicians being caught in the bathroom stall doing strange things with other dudes, and then the more recent story of the conservative politician that cross-dress and like to be the bottom for black dudes. Like, come on, man. So, you know, hey, if that's your thing, then that's your thing. Hysterical, but the hypocrisy of it all, right? Just saying. Just saying, you know. Yeah, that's definitely crazy. And Big Kev says it's funny that in INCLS get so much hate, yet enlightened folks push. Damn, I gotta say it like this then. Enlightened folks push and seldom on men as the ultimate quote unquote moral solution for modern relationships. Well, isn't that actually, Big Kev? That's a really good statement. Isn't that what they're doing? What you're saying is 100% accurate. Isn't that what they're doing? Effectively, we're not. So essentially, is it being verbalized so much? But is that effectively what's going on? Absolutely. And you watch them mocking men whenever you hear, and this goes from like official news segments I've seen all the way to like the podcast, right? Whenever it is said to women that 1/3 of men under the age of 30 didn't have sex in a year, and how many men are sexless for a year at a time, and et cetera, et cetera. They either first don't believe it or at least pretend not to believe it. They assign some type of character flaw to those men, right? Or they, like Big Kev is saying, they kind of say, yeah, well, so effectively, our society is pushing inceldom on the masses of men because women are trying to huddle up on particular type of men, which, by the way, I don't even think I have a problem with. But then when you fail and then you throw a temper tantrum and then you beat up on the same men that you were never attracted to and never found appealing. And by the way, this is before you finally break, and now you're ending up with those men. Once again, like I said, I think these women have huge egos, and I don't think most of them or a sizable minority of them are going to do it. But for the ones that do, before they finally end up with these guys, they throw temper tantrums, right? But I agree with this, and I think this is particularly more of a left leaning thing, right? Both, it's as if both ideological spectrum, or both sides of the ideological spectrum and of the political spectrum, um, are low key advocating for Darwinism, just from different angles, right? For the right, it's more economic, right? Darwinism. But and from the left, it's more of a like social, moral. The right actually gets into the morality thing too, but it's more of a like a Christian base, a Christian fundamental base moralism. For the left, it's more of a ideological base, educational base moralism, right? But both of them effectively end up in this weird form of like Darwinism. That's what it turns to be effectively, right? Ed Buck, hysterical. Yeah, that was the name of the politician, the conservative politician, right? Yep. So I agree. I agree with you on that one, Big Kev. I agree with you on that one. Absolutely. And they push it, and ultimately it ends up kind of where we are now, right? And this is where Bowser comes in, and this is where Ebony K. Williams comes in, and this is where um, Professor or Doctor Daniel Bell Procope, or Daniel Procope Bell, um, this is where she comes in, and they keep those women going on the fuel of the rhetoric is what keeps these women going. The average woman who can't afford this, who is lonely, who is crying herself to sleep at night, who once again doesn't have the status or the money or the gravitas, or just is not in the place to practice this type of man with this type of ideology over everything, the way a Bowser can, or the way Dr. Danielle Bell Procope, or is it Procope Bell does. The women that can't afford to do that but are doing it are running off of the fuel of Bowser and her rhetoric, right? Are running off of the fuel of Real Talk with Yanni and her rhetoric, Chrissy and her rhetoric, right? So when Chrissy mocks women that are going 50-50 in these relationships, that's the fuel that these women use to keep on going while they're starving, while they're struggling, right? When Real Talk with Yanni says, "What's the incentive? What's this? What's the incentive?" That is the fuel that these women use to run on, right? Because we already know the median income for Black women because not all black women work 40 hours a week. The median income for black women right now is somewhere around what, $30,000 a year? Ugh, that's not enough. Even if it was $40,000 a year, that's not enough, right? So let's read that one more again. And Big Kev says it's funny that incels. I gotta say it the right way because I gotta read it inceldom. So it's funny that incels get so much hate, yet enlightened folks push inceldom on men as the ultimate quote unquote moral solution for modern relationships. Yeah, what's going on, Art? So yeah, yeah. No, I don't think they had that conversation yet, Ishmael. I don't think they had that conversation yet. I think we would have heard about it. I'll look it up. I'll look it up. Right, but I don't think they had that conversation yet. And once again, thank you for the super chat, Big Kev. Exactly. And Prodigy says, inceldom is pushed on men, but sexual freedom is celebrated in women. Right. And yet everyone's kind of low key miserable. Right. I'm from my understanding, from what I'm hearing, I haven't heard enough about it, but from what I'm hearing, even the dudes that are spoiled for choice are getting fed up because of the expectations they're being hit with. Right. So I got to do, my little research to see how true that is. But word on the streets, the Chad and Tyrones, right? The Chisel Chin Chad and the Chisel Chin Tyrone and the Chisel Chin Juan and Chisel Chin Lee. From my understanding, even them, they're like, okay, yeah. Chisel Chin Ahmed I don't know how true that is. Because I can imagine being spoiled for choice, especially as a bachelor. You're not married, you're not in a relationship, you just having fun, and you let all the women know that you're having fun. But yet the expectation is there, and every time after y'all finish, she's hitting you with the "so what are we?" And low key darkness. I would like to. Art New Style is here. Ask Art New Style, right? And low key darkness says, "Damn, they would rather go 100 alone than 50-50 coupled up." Literally, younger boomers and older Xers are the ones that really pioneered. It may not, the term may have started before them, but they're really the ones that were pushing. I could do better by myself. So yes, to answer your question, low key darkness, absolutely. All my Xers that are here, am I lying? Yeah, low key darkness, yes. Unfortunately, yes. John Jones said, "Spoiled for choice and overwhelmed." Yeah, I think that's where some of those brothers are, right? So yeah, they would rather do it by themselves, right, than be in a relationship going 50-50 or 55-45 or any of it. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay. But the second Mr. Z is on this, especially for adults, over 25-year-old adults. Oh, if you say that to me, if it was up to me, you would be there forever. You don't get to do a reach back. Shout out to Accountable Commentary. You don't get to do a reach back at 45 years old. Absolutely not. You stay over there. Go deal with the white dudes. If you say I could do better by myself, I'm not settling. I'm not doing struggle love. If it was up to Z, No black man would touch you. Yeah, maybe a non-black man will end up with you when you come to the quote realization after 40 or 45 years old. Maybe you could do same-sex loving with another black woman or whatever woman. But if it was up to Z, oh no, a black man wouldn't touch you after that, right? And Ishmael says that's all I heard growing up, and I'm a young Xer. That I could do better by myself. Oh yeah, all right. If it was up to Z, I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna call your bluff. Let's see. I promise you, I would every black man's peen, I would turn it off when you get in her vicinity. Nope, she gets nothing. Right? If you throw in a temper tantrum because the chisel chin Brads and Tyrones ain't checking for you, or at least they're not giving you what you think you deserve, and you talking all this reckless stuff at 28 and 30 and 32, and you throwing temper tantrums, you don't get to do the reach back and talk about coming to an epiphany or a realization at 43 years old, 45 years old. Absolutely not. And by the way, it's not because Z doesn't believe that people grow and mature and truly do have epiphanies. I think we do. I think we do. I give people space to grow and mature and have your ideas develop and whatnot. But that's not what we're dealing with when it comes to black women in this thing. What it really is temper tantrum, number one. And then number two, trying to find a desperate dude or a dude that you know been chasing after you for 20 some odd years, 20 years, and then quote settling with him when you come to the realization or when you have the epiphany or when you want to do the reach back. It's not like you actually had an epiphany like that, like that. No, you're desperate. So you settle for the dude and he get and whoever it was, I gotta see I wanted to say I gotta go back out. His channel don't even exist no more on YouTube. But Obsidian had a panel once, and I want to say it was one of the more earlier times last year that he covered Bowser. And when he opened the panel up, this middle-aged sister called in. I don't know what her name was. A middle-aged sister called in, and she used, and I mentioned this before, she used lead attorney as like the ideal man. And what she was saying was like, sisters will want a lead attorney, and they will hold out for a lead attorney. They will hope and pine and wish that lead attorney will say something to them, and some of these women will get married and they will have children, but lead attorney was always their ideal man. And the reason why they're snarky to their husbands, the reason why they're mean, the reason why they act the way they do is because their husband is not lead attorney. Their boyfriend and their baby daddy is not lead attorney. They end up having sex with their boyfriend or their husband or their baby daddy. They end up having kids with that person. They might even end up marrying that person. But the reason why they don't have this reverence and love for that person in that way is because you're not lead attorney. Right? And I can't remember what her name was, but that's pretty much the message that she was forwarding. And I think that happens. I think that happens way more than men would like to admit. Right? I think that happens way more than what they would like to admit. Oh. And Real Black Gentleman says, black women started looking for blackness in white women's houses. Hysterical and true. No lies detected. And Prodigy says, thanks, Z. I finally, LOL, I'm caught you're alive. Yeah. Yes, sir. Right. See, Low Key Darkness says, Chris Rock said it best. You ain't her first choice. Hey, and black men, for some of us, we just gotta, accept that. How does she treat you though? Right? How does she treat you? Yeah, you might not be her first choice, but how does she treat you? How does she speak to you? Right? Does she let it be known that you're not? Because first of all, I couldn't deal with that. The second you tell me you could do better, or I'm not your first choice, I'm gone, bruh. I'm gone. You will wake up. You will come back from work, and my stuff will be gone. Right? Yeah. And Afro National says that's the thing. They don't want the lead attorney. Yeah, true. For some, yeah. But I guess I get where she was coming from. She just was using the lead attorney as like the ideal man, right? Like women have the ideal man in their head, and they'll still end up with someone, they'll still marry someone, they'll have kids, they'll quote unquote live their life, but the ideal man is still there. And because in their mind you're not the ideal man, no matter what you're doing, mind you, there's a contempt towards you and a anger towards the situation. Right? Yeah. Leon said, lie to me and I'll lie to you. I'm saying, because if you can't stroke my ego, then don't you ever ask me if you look big in that dress. Don't ever ask me if you look big in that dress. Right? If you can't stroke my ego, then there's certain things you can't say and you can't ask for. For real. Mm-mm-mm. But on that note, y'all, we always do shout out to the BGS drift. We always do the Mr. Z version of the BGS drift, right? Notice I said we. I ain't blaming just on me. See, it's your channel. I said we, right? Doing the same thing the sisters do. When they winning, they're winning. If they're losing, the black community is losing, right? Individualize the gains, socialize the losses, right? So on that note, y'all, look, Mr. Z got stuff to do. I turned this almost regular streams into regular streams. So we will pause right here. Truly, love, peace, and chicken grease. Thank y'all for listening. Shout out to Diallo Kenyatta. The framing, but it's good to see some of what we say being addressed. Now, right now, it's super lightweight, and obviously, you still have people chastising us and belittling us and marginalizing us and pretty much telling us to shut up, and calling us sexist and misogynist and misogynoirist, etc., etc. But at least what we've been saying has finally gone mainstream, as BGS has said, right? We've reached escape velocity, and expect, especially for the women, for a little bit longer. Like that's why I say the general is always fighting the last war. Expect the women to continue to sound like Bowser and Dr. Danielle, Dr. Danielle Bell Procope or Procope Bell. But the men, at least, are starting to entertain what we're saying a little bit more, um, or just outright say, "Yeah, y'all might have a concern here, but I'm going to ignore it." Shout out to Alvin, which is letting us know where you stand. That's letting us know very clearly. Yeah, this is a thing, but it's not a thing because I'm not going to address it. I have firmly chosen my side. I believe. Shout out to what Big Kev was saying. I believe in the moral high ground of black women over black men. And so that's why I stake my claim. Shout out to you, Alvin. Thank you for letting us know where you stand. Right. So on that note, y'all go check out other Black Manosphere content, other non-Manosphere content, and Mr. Z out. Y'all have a great, great, great rest of y'all day. Yeah, and I should be coming to y'all tomorrow. Hopefully, knock on wood, cross fingers. As I said, I want to do that Doomer stream. Yeah. So yeah, I really want to knock that out this week. Oh man, I wanted to review Jason's video too. Jason Black video. See, damn it. Ugh, that might happen tonight. I might do a stream tonight. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, all right, y'all. Y'all have a great rest of y'all day. Mr. Z out.